There is something happening right now that most men will never admit, and almost no one will say to your face. Older men are winning with women, not because of money, not because of status, and definitely not because of the way they look. They are winning because they understand something that younger men spend decades chasing, and most of them never find. If you are a man over 40 and somewhere in the back of your mind you believe your best days with women are behind you, I need you to stop everything and pay attention. Because what I am about to tell you is not what self help books teach. It is not what fitness influencers push on social media. And it is certainly not what your younger competition believes about themselves. What I'm going to share with you tonight are the three things that older men quietly do, often without even thinking about it, that trigger something deep inside a woman's psychology, something she cannot explain, cannot rationalize, and cannot resist. Something that bypasses every filter she has built and lands directly in the part of her brain that was never designed to be logical. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you will understand something that most men spend their entire lives getting wrong. And once it truly clicks, women will never confuse you again. But first, I need to tell you the lie, because until you understand what is false, you cannot see what is true. Society has spent decades building a story about male attraction that is fundamentally broken. It tells men that they need to be young, that youth equals desirability, that a man's attractiveness peaks early and falls apart with every passing year, that wrinkles mean weakness, that slower movement means less masculinity, that the gap between you and a 25-year-old is something you need to close or accept defeat. So, what do men do? They panic. They chase external fixes. They buy products to look younger. They dress like men half their age. They step into competition on dimensions where they are naturally at a disadvantage, trying to outperform someone who was born in a different decade. And the result of all that effort? They become invisible. Not because age made them invisible, because fear of age did. Here is the first truth this video is built on. Women are not attracted to youth. Women are attracted to certainty, and certainty is something that only time, real experience, and genuine suffering can produce. You cannot fake it. You cannot buy it. And a 25-year-old cannot manufacture it, no matter how aggressively confident he appears on the surface. That shallow confidence you see in younger men, the loud energy, the constant performing, the need to be seen, that is not certainty. That is insecurity wearing a very convincing costume. Certainty is what an older man carries when he has already been through the fire and walked out the other side, when he has loved and lost, when he has built something real and watched it fall apart, when he has faced his own failures honestly and decided who he is without needing anyone else's permission to be that person. That weight in how he moves, that stillness in how he speaks, that is what we are really talking about. And it is the foundation of everything you are about to learn. The first secret. Have you ever walked into a room and immediately felt drawn to one person without being able to explain exactly why? Before you spoke to them, before you knew anything about them, something just pulled your attention in their direction and held it there. What you were feeling was presence, not confidence in the way most people use that word, not charm, not charisma, presence. The state of a person who is so completely anchored inside themselves that the space around them changes. This is the first secret that older men carry, sometimes without even knowing it. And it is the one that younger men fight hardest to manufacture and fail every single time. Here is what presence actually is. It is not filling the room with your energy. It is not dominating the conversation. It is not performing your value to everyone watching. Real presence is the absence of that kind of performance. It is what remains when a man has nothing left to prove and nobody left to impress. It is the quiet gravity of a person who is genuinely complete inside himself. Think about what that feels like to a woman. She is surrounded constantly by men who are broadcasting how successful they are, how funny they are, how desirable they are. Every interaction is a pitch, a resume, a show. And she sits through all of it politely while feeling nothing real. And then a man walks in who is not broadcasting at all. He is simply there. He does not scan the room looking for validation. He does not adjust his personality based on who is watching. He holds eye contact without urgency. He speaks without rushing to impress. His silence is not uncomfortable. It is almost magnetic. She feels something different. She does not know what to call it at first, but she is paying attention to him in a way she is not paying attention to anyone else in the room. That pull she feels is presence working on her biology before her logic even has a chance to intervene. Now, here is something most men will never understand. Presence is not a skill you perform. The moment you start performing it, you lose it. Presence is what appears when you stop performing everything else. It is the natural state of a man who has genuinely stopped needing to earn approval in every room he enters. That shift from performing to being, from seeking to embodying, is a shift most men never make. And for the men who do, women always notice, without exception. Younger men are fighting desperately for her attention. Older men are not fighting at all because they understand the paradox at the center of attraction. The man who needs nothing from this interaction is the most powerful person in it. This is not arrogance. Arrogance is insecurity that learned to speak loudly. Real presence is quiet. It does not announce itself. It does not need to. It simply exists, and everything around it rearranges accordingly. The second secret. Now pay close attention because this next part is where most conversations about attraction completely fall apart and where most men make the single most costly mistake of their romantic lives. There is a word that gets misunderstood in nearly every discussion about male attraction. That word is tension. When most men hear the word tension in the context of relationships, they think of conflict, or they think of manipulation, of deliberate games, of creating drama to trigger an emotional reaction. That is not what I am talking about. I want to be very clear about this. Real tension, the kind that makes a woman think about a man for days after a single conversation, is not manufactured. It is not a trick. It is the natural byproduct of a man who has enough self-possession to let things build at their own pace. Let me give you a scene that will make this real. Two men enter a conversation with the same woman on the same evening. The first man is warm, enthusiastic, immediately complimentary. He tells her she is beautiful within the first 60 seconds. He laughs at everything she says. He mirrors her energy, leans in close, and works visibly hard to make her feel special. His effort is not subtle. It is everywhere. The second man holds eye contact a beat longer than comfortable, then smiles slowly, not eagerly. When she says something interesting, he does not rush to respond. He holds the thought for a moment before he speaks. He is genuinely curious about her, but that curiosity is a reward he gives selectively, not a performance he runs automatically. When he speaks, she listens more carefully because his words feel earned rather than given away. Which man creates something she will still be thinking about at 2 in the morning? Which man makes her feel something she cannot immediately name? The first man gave everything too quickly. He collapsed the tension before it had a chance to build. Being around him is pleasant, it is comfortable, but it is flat. There is nowhere for emotion to go because he left no space for it. The second man understands what every experienced man eventually learns. Restraint is more powerful than expression. Silence at the right moment creates more impact than the perfect sentence. Pulling back slightly at the moment of peak connection leaves something unresolved in her mind. And the unresolved is what she keeps returning to. Here is something most people never say out loud. The older man who has been through real relationships, real losses, real moments where he needed something badly from a woman and reached for it too hard and watched it disappear, that man knows in his bones what neediness costs. Not from theory, from experience. He knows that the moment he needs a specific reaction from her, he has already lost control of the emotional experience. Neediness collapses tension instantly. It transforms a charged moment into a desperate one, and desperation is the single most unattractive signal a man can send. But the man who can sit inside uncertainty without flinching, the man who can allow a moment of real connection to exist without immediately rushing to label it, define it, or confirm it, that man keeps her in a state of pleasurable uncertainty. And pleasurable uncertainty is what women describe as being deeply, unexplainably attracted to someone. Have you ever been fascinated by someone and not known entirely why? You kept replaying conversations. You kept wondering what they thought, what they really meant, what they wanted from you. You were thinking about them even when you did not want to be. That is tension working. That is the unresolved loop running inside your mind. And the men who understand how to create that in women who have the self-possession to hold back when everything in them wants to reach forward, those men become unforgettable. Here's the contrast that changes everything once you see it clearly. Eagerness kills mystery, restraint builds it, over-explanation destroys tension. The right silence deepens it. Chasing creates distance. Stillness pulls toward you. Not because of strategy, not because of games, because of how emotional experience actually works in the human nervous system. When everything is given freely and immediately, there is nothing left to want. When something is felt but not yet fully understood, the mind keeps circling back until it can close the loop. And older men, the ones who have learned this not from theory, but from years of getting it wrong first, let that loop stay open just long enough for something real to build inside her. The third secret. Listen carefully. Everything I have told you so far leads here. And this is the piece that separates men who occasionally attract women from men who consistently hold a woman's deepest respect, attention, and loyalty over time. Most men move through the world with their identity resting in external hands. Their confidence goes up when she responds warmly and crashes when she pulls away. They feel valuable when she looks at them with interest and worthless when she does not. Their inner world rises and falls entirely based on the feedback they receive from the people around them. This is not a character flaw. It is what most of us were never shown how to overcome, but it is the most devastating thing that can happen to a man in the context of attraction. Here is why. Women read a man's internal state below the level of conscious thought. Not his words, not just his appearance or his actions in isolation, but the emotional signal underneath all of it. They are constantly, almost involuntarily, asking one question. Is he grounded in himself, or is his sense of self borrowed from the people around him? When a man's identity is contingent on her response, she feels it before he speaks a single word. It shows up in how his posture changes when she goes quiet. It shows up in how quickly he explains himself when she seems uncertain. It shows up in the sudden shift in his energy the moment he senses she might be losing interest. He becomes a different person in those moments. And she feels that change. And the respect she had for him begins, slowly and silently, to erode. Not because she is cruel, not because she is ungrateful, but because something in her biology cannot sustain attraction toward a man whose identity she is holding in her hands. She does not want that responsibility, and she will not stay with a man who gives it to her. Now, here is what makes the older man genuinely different. Not all older men, but the ones who have done the real internal work. They have lived long enough to build an identity that belongs entirely to themselves. A sense of self that was forged in experience and failure and solitude and the long, difficult process of starting over when everything fell apart. They know who they are not because someone told them, because they built it the hard way. And this is the most powerful thing a man can bring to any interaction with a woman. Not his resume, not his resources, his identity, the unshakable foundation of knowing exactly who he is, what he values, and what he will and will not accept. The kind of knowing that no amount of tension, testing, or emotional withdrawal can move. When she pulls away, he does not chase. Not because he read a rule somewhere, because he is genuinely secure enough to allow space without interpreting it as collapse. When conflict rises, he does not explode or dissolve. He stays present and grounded because his internal world does not depend on the stability of the external one. When she tests him, and she will test him, not with conscious intention, but with emotional instinct, the way every human being tests the people they are beginning to care about, he passes, not because he studied a script, because he actually knows who he is. Here is the hardest truth in everything I have shared today. You cannot fake an unshakable identity. A woman sees through performance within minutes. What she is looking for, beneath every surface signal, beneath everything visible, is a man whose inner world is real, earned, and stable. A man who will be the same person tomorrow that he was when everything was going right. That is the man she wants to stay close to. That is the man she cannot easily walk away from. This is why the shortcuts fail. A new haircut, a better wardrobe, a rehearsed line might open a conversation, but it falls apart the moment real pressure arrives because she is not ultimately attracted to what you present. She is attracted to what you are, and what you are is built in the moments nobody sees. In the times you stayed calm when you wanted to react, in the times you walked away when everything in you wanted to beg, in the times you chose your own standards over her immediate approval. Every single one of those moments added one more layer to the identity that she will one day find impossible to leave. Think about the men around you, the ones who seem to draw real attention and real loyalty from women without visible effort. Not the loud ones, not the performers, not the ones who announce their value at every opportunity, the still ones, the ones who seem genuinely, completely at home inside their own lives. They do not need anything from this room. They do not need anything from her. And that is exactly why she cannot stop thinking about them. These three things, presence, tension, and identity, are not techniques. I want to be absolutely clear about this. You cannot apply them like a formula and expect manufactured results. They are the natural expression of a man who has stopped apologizing for who he is, who has stopped competing on dimensions that do not matter, and started embodying the one thing that has always mattered: the quiet, unshakable certainty of his own value. You can spend the next 10 years doing what most men do: chasing, performing, shrinking, trying to earn what can never be earned because it was never for sale. It has to be lived, or you can start right now. Understanding that the most powerful thing you will ever communicate to a woman is not a sentence. It is the way you remain yourself when everything around you is asking you to collapse. The most irresistible version of you is not younger, richer, or different. It is more deeply, more completely, more irreversibly yourself. The world will not teach you this, but now you know. If this gave you a new way of seeing things, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to this channel because we go deeper here than most people are willing to go. We talk about the things that actually shift how a man thinks, how he carries himself, and how he shows up in the moments that define everything. This is just the beginning.